afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We'll take a minute just to get settled in here. My name is Janelle Hemingway. Happy to be your session host. And if you are joining us via Zoom, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you mute yourselves if you don't mind, please. And this session is intentional, equitable advising, using a student-centered advising syllabus to drive innovation and professionalism. We have three fabulous presenters with us for this noon session. Lori Jenema, who is with the College of Health Professions, advises for many online programs. Angie Buys, School of Digital Media, academic advisor. And Angie Ryan, also College of Health Professions, academic advising. So ladies, thank you so much for the session. We are looking forward to it. I think you have a pretty heavy Zoom presence as well. So we are really excited about your information that you're going to share. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to stand up and side over here. I'm Angie Ryan, one of the Angies. So today we're going to talk about a little bit about how this idea came about. Advising syllabi have become more prevalent for professional advisors. And Lori's going to talk a little bit more about that. A group of us had a discussion and realized that there might be some opportunity to grow here at Ferris to kind of, even though we're all decentralized in a lot of our locations as academic advisors, there are some pieces that are centralized to what we do. And so it would be a nice tool for us to use to communicate that to our students. So we can go to the next slide, Ange.
How are we moving to the next slide up there? Sorry. Is it?
One is on the
One
screen.
moment while
One
we
is
have
on share.
work through the technology here.
So I think if you hit this.
There we go.
Okay, and then
So an
how do I get to
overview, what Lori's going to talk about why the advising syllabus. We're going to take a look at some examples that we found from different institutions throughout the United States. We're going to talk about how we can broaden access by using CAP universal design. And then please understand this is a work in progress. This is something we began building and we're hoping to launch in the near future at some point. But we'd also like to hear some of your feedback. What do you think could you see yourself using in your classrooms or colleges or departments? But also what do you see as some of the challenges that we could encounter?
So I'll start by explaining why a syllabus. I'm currently pursuing a master's degree through Kansas State University in academic advising. And so I had an opportunity through a class last year to create an academic advising syllabus. And Angie Buys and I have been working together on an academic advising philosophy. And I just was like, hey, you want to shift gears maybe and look at doing or implementing a syllabus. Something new to us, something new to Ferris, but I can see how it might be a really useful tool for not only us, new advisors, faculty advisors, but also really for our students. And then some of the things that we can include on a syllabus and within a syllabus that can help our advising practices. So, and with us, doing that too, we also brought in Angie Ryan to help us be more innovative with this too. What can we do to make this not such a boring document that they're used to seeing, right? So we're going to use this advising syllabus to define what advising is. What do advisors do? A lot of our high school students really don't know what an advisor is, when they should reach out to us, and why they would even utilize us. So that will also lead to defining our roles. We want to define our roles as advisors in our relationship with our students, but we also want to define what the role of the student is as well in that relationship. Often students aren't clear on what their expectations are. And we want to really counter some of those inappropriate expectations that they may have of their advisors too. And so we can also utilize this to address some of those common student questions. Common student questions such as, who is my advisor? Where are they located? How do I make an appointment with them? What are some common policies that we can include on that syllabus? And then we can lead that to productive appointments. We're limited on our time. We have lots of students to advise, so we want to make sure that we are spending our time wisely when we are in our advising appointments. This also will allow us, and has allowed us, to formulate some of those student learning goals and outcomes. So the syllabus is a way for us to identify what we do, what we teach as advisors, make sure that is a teaching activity, that co-curricular activity between the advisor and the students. And then that will also strengthen the advisor and advisee relationship. So we're always looking for ways that we can connect with our students, and this is another way we can do that. Which leads into that professionalism. So we are professional academic advisors. Of course, we are speaking to also faculty advisors too, but we can promote professionalism in academic advising by applying a flipped advising approach. And so if you're familiar with flipped advising is similar to flipped teaching classroom. It's going to support that advising is a teaching learning activity with our students. It's also going to encourage the students' active engagement within that too. And again, leads back to, what are their responsibilities? What do they need to be involved in? It's also proactive advising. So we want to be intrusive and intentional with our students. This again is a way for us to do that, to intentionally reach out to our students and be proactive in that. As professional advisors, we do need to align ourselves with the NACADA core values. We want to align ourselves with the CAS standards, the 9 conditions of excellence in academic advising. These are documents that we are all familiar with as academic advisors. And all of those documents are going to speak to student learning outcomes, advising programs, what students should gain out of interacting with their advisors. And then student learning outcomes will also lead to assessment. So we can assess, and I'm just gonna briefly go over this because this is future goals, is assessment. So by establishing the framework for our student learning goals, our outcomes for our students, we can then identify what we teach and is it effective? Do we need to reevaluate, change our methods, change our practices? Do the students desire new technology like Navigate that's coming? What do we need to do to support student learning? And then we can also utilize any evidence that's collected and implement changes needed to improve that advising experience with our students. Maybe that leads to professional development opportunities or something specific that us as advisors need to focus on. And then lots of examples out there that I have seen of academic advising assessment plans. And I don't believe Ferris has one, or advising specifically. Lots of them out there. I'm currently in an assessment course. Pretty excited to see what we could do with that. But that's part of the background of leading up to why an advising syllabus.
So one of the things we felt strongly about is being so student-centered in our roles, but also Ferris as university tends to be lean towards student-centered approach in teaching, is that an advising syllabus would create a universal expectation across the university about what students can expect, at least minimum expectations from their advisor, whether they're a faculty advisor, a professional advisor, or some other type of financial aid advisor even. Like Lori mentioned, this will clearly lay out the expectations of the role for each person, or each of the student and the advisor. The advising syllabus will also create a central place where all students have access the information that is in there. And Angie's going to talk a little bit more about how we've developed or in the process of developing one of the ways that we feel like would be easily accessible. And then I think I covered them all way quickly, a lot more quickly than I anticipated. But yeah, it's mainly just keeping it. If we can keep it universal and communicate it clearly to the students and the advisors, then that creates the equity across the campus. They have a general idea of what the expectations should be. And so now we're going to kind of show you some examples of different ones. The link should work. We might have to stop sharing and then share that. Okay. So
There are numerous examples out there of universities, institutions that have established academic advising programs, vision, missions, syllabi that are out there and doable.
we'll get there here in just a second.
And just kind of to fill in from the whole, we had a meeting, we established an advising syllabus. It came from like, Lori had a homework assignment she had to do. And she brought it up to me because when she brought up the philosophy of advising, I was like, oh, that's a great idea. I should have one of those. I had it for teaching. Why wouldn't I have it for advising? When she brought up the advising syllabus, I pushed back a lot more. I was like, why? Why am I spending my time doing this? Will students actually access it? What's the point of it? And so and she was so great because she's like, well, I went and talked to Julie Rowan and I came back with this idea and I brought this back. And so then she's like, well, these are the whys. And the really big one that hit me, that I really felt in my core was the equity. Because we do have students that don't have an advisor who, that's all they do, like what I do. It made a lot of sense to me, like how can I support faculty who are teaching and advising so that those students get the same experience or as similar as possible because they
So do we just go up to
so
sharing
that's where then she was able to get me on board, and so then we kind of built from there.
So, all right, we might not click through all of the links just because I don't want to I want to make sure we are cognizant of everybody's time. But Clemson University, this is published on their website, but it clearly lays out the things we've been talking about: the purpose of academic advising, the student learning outcomes, roles and responsibilities to the student, and then the roles of the responsibilities of the advisor. And then also includes tips for making your advising experience more successful. I like this because how it's laid out. However, I know it's a lot of words, and I know our students don't usually read if there's a lot of words, especially if it's something we really want them to read. So that's where the innovation starts to come about, and what can we get them to use that we already are using and they're going to be using here as a student at Ferris. One of the other ones, I'm going to see if I can flip, because one of the other important pieces is the, let me get to the right slide. I kind of call it as a calendar for success, or student that can add to student success. And this school laid everything out for us as a good example, I felt like. So this is one that looks like your traditional syllabus, what you would expect when you walk in class or you're developing as a faculty member. And it hits all of the points that we've been talking about, but when I got to the end of it, it has the 3-semester advising calendar, and it highlights that are best practices for students that are successful in getting their degrees. So meeting with your advisor, doing those beginning of classes, consult with your advisor, confer with your advisor, attend major fairs, register for spring semesters, and it lays it all out there. So the idea became, could we create this in a centralized place and have the ability to share it with whomever wants to use it And this would be a general one, but each college department advisor, faculty advisor could add to it things that are specific to that program, that major, that department, that college, etc. So I'm going to stop sharing that and hopefully flip back to our PowerPoint.
This might be where I need to log in.
Okay. To log into the NYFSU.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
But she's got to log in though.
Yeah.
Yep. She's got to log into the piece that we need to share. So, learned something new already today, how complicated it is with the Zoom and the face-to-face. So that's okay. It's all learning. So we can kind of do like maybe a partway check-in while Angie.
Yeah, thank
gets-
you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, while Angie gets this up. For those of you that might be here in the room or even on Zoom, do you see yourselves as potentially using something like this? Yes.
We have one for the College of Business that I usually give out at orientation.
Okay.
And Trinity, I'm going to tell you, I think I borrowed it from Anne Marie Gillespie
Oh, wow.
200 years ago. So
Okay.
I look forward to maybe you guys analyzing it and suggesting some improvements. And I do know one of the challenges is getting students to read it.
Right.
Yeah, we have, I think, like a 4-year plan. This is what you should be
Sure.
doing, and it's, yeah, Sharon, we're not through the first week yet. So.
Yep. Yeah.
And Sharon, full disclosure, I used that as I was creating stuff, so. I used that
And
and,
I know our department secretary does it for us in our program. She invites us to events and they're like, last day to withdraw for a class and those types of things. And then they automatically show up on like our calendar, which is just a great like reminder.
oh
I'm just
shoot,
thinking maybe if you could get into students' calendars and like,
Put those things on
like,
there.
okay, registration open.
Right.
Or I don't know what they see. So I mean, I'm just saying from our point of view, it's been helpful to me that the secretary at the start of the school year puts all these things in there. And I just hit accept.
Sure.
And then they're built into my actual Outlook. Now, a lot of students don't use their Outlook calendar, but it might just be another place to be like,
But they also might not know they can
Right.
use their Outlook calendar.
right.
You
I think
know,
the other thing is, and I was sending an email to all of them in February, like, don't wait till whatever, like, here's a reminder, schedule the appointments now. I don't know if other people do that, but that was a
Yep.
recommendation when I started.
I just sent mine on
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Which is why my email's blowing up today. So,
it's not letting me log in, y'all.
okay. So,
Do you guys use Calendly too for your
Yeah.
scheduling? That would be another thing that would be
Authentication
huge help,
thing
is they just go in there and
scary.
schedule instead of.
And I
being
can't
like,
get
yeah,
to, like, I would hit enter because
and
I
that's
think that that
actually
actually
gonna
looks
likely
better, but
change with Navigate.
Those are just
Our
a
leadership
few.
team for that. And yes.
You got after study, you have to.
I think it's just a short name.
But Navigate will
Oh,
Thank
have
you,
told you how.
Justin.
more
Okay.
personalized and more accessible.
I don't even know what that
don't even know where I'm logging in right
Navigate is
now.
part of the Fair Equity Initiative, and it's a software system
Try
or
again.
online format that.
There we go.
Fair is
Just
purchased
do the
to use. And we're in the process of building it and getting it implemented. But that is something that students will download an app. And I figure, I always think about where do we have them as a captive audience? Well, at orientation and FSUS. The first thing you do that first day, that if you haven't downloaded it, download the app. Like, and then they have it
Okay,
forward facing,
there we
they
go.
log into the app and can see their advisors, their faculty members.
I'm going to as soon as I.
Through the app. So it will be even more easy than what it is now. Yeah. All right.
All right,
And are we-
so I'm
are
going
we
to
sharing it?
right now.
Okay.
So here, where's my shipping?
Oh, we've got 3 people in the chat. We have 3 comments in the chat.
Where's share? My screen, this one, right?
Yep.
All right, there we go.
Absolutely.
All right, so we started talking about different ways that we could put it out there, and we had the paper format, and then I knew that Sharon had that online one. I also knew that EIO has the amazing Canvas shell, so I kind of took from both of those, and then I struggled because there was so much information. So this is where Angie finding that calendar really became really helpful, because I said, all right, if I use that as a main page, and I say, these are the things that are important for students to do, then we can start there, and we can have the traditional advising syllabus. So starting with your purpose and roles and responsibilities, and you have the advising name and all of that. And so you scroll down, and it's all of those things that were on that paper syllabus that we might end up deciding we want to go back and kind of look at some more. But for now, it's a placeholder that we have that. And then we have, okay, what is it that a student would need to do in the summer before they enter Ferris? So that takes us to more of the module view. And the thought with the module view is it kind of lays things out if you're an advisor looking at it. So a faculty advisor and advisor, you're looking at it. These are things that are behind the scenes, but then there's also things in there that are shared with students. And so then as you go in and edit it, you decide, like, is this a student facing aspect that they would benefit from having this information? Or is this more of, as a faculty advisor, it's a nice resource to have? So then what I know, as I've been working with faculty advisors in the School of Digital Media, they'll send me things like, hey, I have this student who needs to withdraw, or hey, the student's ready for graduation. And so I've kind of come up with some different templates of things that I send out to students, and I send to my faculty advisors at the same time. And I say, well, when I have a student that has to do that, this is the email that I send them, or this is the information that I send them. And so I thought, well, if me sending that to my faculty advisors is something that they have found useful, maybe other people would find it useful. So that's where, if you keep going in here, we have like all the videos and all the resources that Ferris already has. But we also have kind of like, see how these are not green, so that's not student facing. That would be something that a faculty could look at and say, okay, what is it that gets sent out? So this is where we could put some examples. And I put in my examples, but this is where people might decide to kind of, you know, take it for their college and put in their college information. Like, what does our college send out? Just because it eliminates those black holes of knowledge. For me, a big black hole is graduation. Like, what happens once a student applies for graduation and they're out of my hands? They keep emailing me these questions. And I'm like, I really don't know. So it would be nice to have that when we get to that point on that calendar, just as a reference tool. Like, oh, you're stuck here. Well, this is who's handling that. This is where you go on the website. So that's kind of how this all came up.
Can I ask, is there anything in there, because I have that same feeling with graduation as well as anything financial aid. Like, I know nothing. And so is there either information there, like if you have this question, you need to go talk to these people?
So I don't know that I've gotten that far yet.
That would be
a great.
A lot of times I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great thing. I always like to say to my advisees, you know, they're the experts with financial aid. That stuff changes all the time. It's probably better to talk to them, but that's a good point to have those types of resources. And that's part of the reason why we wanted to have this dialogue with you guys, to help build something that could be used university-wide.
Right, and to hear those things, like,
Yes.
So my black hole is graduation, financial aid is another one, so to know that that's something that we want to put up there. This is being recorded, right? Okay. So we get to go back to it. All
I
right.
would also recommend maybe having a section about tip students.
Good idea.
Because that's another, that like, if they don't get those 6 credits, they're not getting all those. I mean, I just found that out from, I think, talking to another, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. And so like, that would be hugely helpful. Like, if they want to get paid for those classes, they need to take 6 credits in a semester, or else, you know.
Right.
Yeah, and we talked about that too. You know, the goal of this was to make advising for the students equitable, and to have a central place for our students to go But then, of course, Angie's like, hey, this would have been a great resource as a new advisor to have this, you know, and to see what the students need to see and to know what they need to know. So it does serve two purposes.
Okay, so stop sharing this, go back to the presentation, right?
Let's check the chat because I see there's 4 things there.
So being offsite. Yeah, we are sending out copies of the PowerPoint, right? And it does have links to resources, and we have a resource page at the end of the PowerPoint too.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, so now I want to share this, right?
Yep, screen share the PowerPoint. Yep.
Okay. Share PowerPoint. All right. But now all that stuff's in the way.
You can do
Here.
if you go here.
There we go. Thank you.
Oh,
All right. So I'm not going to go to another website. So just so you know, there is a website for CAST that has Universal Design for Learning. And where the Canvas shell came up and having the paper syllabus came up, it's kind of pointing to what Sharon brought up, is that students don't necessarily access what we give them. And so CAST philosophy, Universal Design for Learning philosophy, is then it's on us to have multiple means of representation. So that hits on that equity thing. So if we have students that aren't going to be accessing these resources, it's great that we put them out there for them, but we still are running into it's not equitable because they're not getting the same information. So that was actually initially where we brought Angie Ryan in, was when we had the traditional syllabus. I have seen graphic representations of syllabi, and I said, well, what if we had like just a quick glance, a graphic one? And Lori and I were taught, and we're like, yeah, that's not my skill set. so then she said, Angie does great at that. So we brought in Angie, and then we had all these other great ideas, and that led us to the Canvas. But we are going to circle back. And then you saw in Canvas, we do have videos as well that Dave Schock and Emily Beard have already created, and I think have been added to by other people. So there's the video representation. We're hoping for that graphic representation, the links and all of that. So we are trying to make sure that it's equitable in that way, really leaning on those UDL principles.
so the utilizing Canvas allows us to implement this fairly easily and equitably across the board, because students are going to be in their Canvas 4 classes anyway. This is something we can make live for their entire time they're here at Ferris. So if they forget about a resource, they can click on it and go and search for it again. So it's all right there. We've mentioned before how customizable it could be. This is just the bare bones is what our plan is to get out there. But then everybody can take it and run with it however they want. I like to claim that I'm still new here at Ferris because I worked my first 4 days I was here on campus, and then we got remote. And so for 7 months, I was working remote as a new advisor. So this would have been something that would have been extremely helpful for me to, as a point of reference throughout all of learning policies and procedures and how Ferris does things. So one of the thoughts we had would be to potentially partner with the Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning and having this be maybe a session of how do you access this Canvas and how can you make it your own during the new faculty orientation week. So then that way they have the access to it if they want to utilize it. And then the other way, like I said, thinking about when we have a captive audience, new freshman orientation, perfect opportunity within our colleges to take 5-10 minutes and show them how to access your Canvas, this is here already. Please go look and dig through this because we're meeting with you in June. You've got all these months. Just come, the first meeting, I want you to come to us with 3 questions from looking at over this stuff. And then a plan that it's been in a part of our discussion, because I love the escape room idea. And I've done a virtual escape room before. So one fun way to maybe make it a part of the new freshman or new student orientation would be to make it a smaller, not an hour version of doing an escape room of things that would be on that syllabus or somehow, or make it part of the FSUS and one of the early sessions with the classes. So we're working on the Canvas shell, we're working on a visual syllabus. Angie wanted to talk about some lessons we've already learned.
So I did not I did not realize that if you're in Canvas and you are not focusing on what you're doing and you hit delete and you think that you're deleting the right module, because I told you I took like a bunch of different modules and put them all together, delete, I went, oh, that's the module I have spent forever working on. Where does it go? Like I couldn't hit fast enough, undo. So I went out there and looked, and you can actually go find deleted modules. So just to know that that is a feature of Canvas that I didn't know about. So you guys could do a tips and tricks on that, right? Please, Matt, because I didn't realize that. And it was a lifesaver because I about freaked out. So just know that if you delete a module, you can reach out to me, but I also have now experienced that and can help you undelete.
And I realized I got a little bit ahead of myself on my notes. So yeah, the how and when to communicate. But like I said, this could be something as early as that first letter we send from the colleges for new students, that there's a link in there for this so they can start exploring and becoming familiar with our systems. And then assessing effectiveness, we've tossed around a couple different ideas, but there's nothing yet. Lori's learning yet. So, but we're hoping to come up with something and then always adjust and evaluate where those learning outcomes and objectives should be reached. So questions, well, first off, we'll ask if there are any questions. And we'll probably want to bring some up for that.
Just stop sharing for now?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is not when we can pull up the references again. So do any of you envision using something like this with your, as a faculty advisor or even?
Yeah, we actually, our program too, we have like a program Canvas page.
Okay.
So like to me, that would be a great place to put all that. Instead of, it's not tied to a specific class. It's basically we have somewhere that if they want to schedule or we just put information out there.
Sure.
To me, that would be a perfect.
And I think that's a great point. I have one of my 8 programs has a Canvas program specific page already established, but the rest of mine don't. So I do feel like there are many students, unless I create it, because it was created by the program, you don't have access to the same information. So with this being a general advising all students on general policies that we are constantly asking each other, does anyone know the policy on XYZ? And between the 12 of us, we might come up with it, but it'd be nice to have it centrally located for us and the students.
I love the idea how you have space for some commonality in terms and policies. Also like the idea of having maybe run through FSUS courses. Would you do 2 separate perspectives, student and advisor for those, or?
We've talked about that. That was the struggle when we were building this, because it kind of like, oh, here's the idea. Oh, let's present this idea because it's great. And then I got bogged down with, well, who's my audience? And so that was the links on, links off, kind of like what's visible, what's not.
I think the EIO version is kind of for the advisor or for the team member. I wonder if that would be something that we would want to look at simplifying a little and using more universally for that side of it. because I think you're right, who's the audience gets tricky. You don't wanna, and it, sometimes simple is better, you know?
And I also didn't want to link from, because Ferris has websites and there are links out there and they change. And so to have us have to go through and update that, that wasn't my intention either.
Yeah.
So it was a balance of what information is needed and why, and that's where the calendar was a lifesaver. Like, okay, this is what we're telling students is important, then that's what we want to be in the Canvas shell. And then that's where the assessment comes in. Are we telling students the right things are important, or do we need to reassess that? So it's that loop.
We do at the College of Business, and I know the other colleges do also, have a Canvas page for all the information, and it does lead back to the links that the university has. So I again look forward to your assessment of how we can improve that.
Do you think there's a way to just create one site and leave stuff unpublished? The meaning a professor could go in there, or someone as a faculty could see it, and then the published version goes attached. Right, it would be with a front facing what the students see, but there's stuff on the back end, like when I create a class, they don't see everything. I have no idea, I was just throwing that out there as a.
And that's part of the reason why we wanted
Right.
time for this kind of discussion, is because we don't know yet either. And with us only being in our roles as professional advisors, we don't always know what faculty may use or find helpful.
The other thing you can do is Faculty Center does in the spring have like their design institute.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Oh my God, I mean, I just saw this and I was like, this would be a great example, because it's like, you're trying to make it kind of accessible, and how does it work for the most amount of people? That seems like right up their alley to go do that for, I think it was like 4 days when I went and did it.
Okay.
So like, it's like, you're there all day, every day, and you're basically, you have something halfway built, like it would be a great time to just get their feedback on it.
Is this focused primarily on undergraduate students?
I don't think so.
I think it could be, we could make, well, I think some pieces are. And I honestly, and when I was developing the calendar, that was my focus, that's my population I work with. So, but I think we could potentially make it to a point where we could have a graduate student or professional student calendar and have the same concepts there for them.
I think there were some distinct areas we wanted to make sure were the same for anyone, but then you can make it customized to the program. My program is going to look differently than their programs because my students are fully online. So I wanted to have that ability too, but then still keep that advising equitable and the same throughout Ferris, because we are decentralized. Decentralized works well for Ferris, but that does disconnect a lot of us in a lot of ways.
Do we have anything on the Zoom?
Where do we get a copy?
One of the things that, I don't know, I'm not an advisor. But I do work with students, particularly when they have complaints. And what I have learned is that students shut down whenever it comes to policies. So one of the things I was thinking about is if the landing page for students was something like, I need to, and then and so it's all in their voice, and it's all in simpler language, because they may not understand what this term means. And if you just keep it short and then they can click right to what it is that they need, it might be easier for them to navigate, and you might see more traffic on it because it is a little bit more student friendly rather than the university ease that we're accustomed to, but they may not be.
Yeah, good point.
Matt, will the presentations be in a like spot after? Okay. So Hatchad will publish all the presentations. Okay.
Building on what Trinity was saying, I think that this information is also helpful for those frontline workers, the folks that are answering the phone.
Absolutely.
Because I know that when I answer the phone, I hate saying, well, I need to transfer you to.
Right.
If it's a simple question and I know the answer, I can give it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely great point. And that's the thing is, like, whenever you build something like this, you want to make sure it's gonna get used.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whether it's just the faculty using it to pick the pieces they want to use for theirs, but also ideally, we really want the students to, and we want to make sure, but having that centralized piece to find things is key, because that was one of the challenges when I was learning, especially remotely, where to find the policy, and is the policy the same because I'm in the College of Health Professions, or is it different, and if this class is under this college, you know, those types of things. So having that place is,
And for the students too, if we had this pre-COVID, and have it as a resource for students to go to when they can't get a hold of one of us or we're booked with appointments, there are, with the hope, most of their questions can also be answered through this advising shell too.
and one of the key things that I love the idea of doing this concept of flipped advising, providing those students the information ahead of time, because a lot of times we get so busy that we have to, it ends up being more transactional, and I hate that. I hate that. I don't feel like I know my students as well as I could, because we're focusing on, oh, you don't know how to get your my degree. This is how we do it. This is where you find your classes, where if this is covered earlier on, or they take the initiative to click through it in the months coming to Ferris, then we can have a more meaningful conversation. Let's discuss more about why you want to do nursing, or why you want to go into nuclear medicine.
I'd like to offer too, if you do stick with the Canvas module, eLearn would be happy to help set up something intuitive, so that it's a student-friendly portal where they can have something in student language with options to take them through it. So yeah, reach out to us for sure. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I don't use Canvas, but I was always under the impression that the students can import and like put all on one calendar, all their various due dates from our classes. So they could take your calendar of all the various dates and have it on one single
I would
calendar.
not pick up that too, because I'm using that right now in my assignment. I'll go into the
I did not get there yet.
Yeah.
The calendar function is something that like, then you have to update it. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but yeah. The other thing connected to what you said, I know that they have like the Ask Brutus, so I love that you asked that, because I'm wondering if we could do something similar with a database of like FAQ, where, so if it's on Canvas, like what you're saying, but then because of the UDL multiple means of representation, if there could also be that connection, where it pre-populates some common advising questions and then takes them right to. So that would be a great extension of this. Thank you.
Any other on Zoom?
Awesome, thank you.
All right, good.
Cool.
We're up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very much.
Thank you.
That's really cool. And I think a lot of people are going to benefit from your work.
It's pretty exciting. There's a lot of pretty cool things out there that in academic advising world that we haven't touched on to yet here. That can improve it.
I was gonna say, Justin, stay on
How are you doing?
No, you know you wanna take them
Oh,
home.
yes.
Thank you.
Nice
job, thanks.
Many of my homework assignments became stuff I took. Or I took stuff from work into my homework.
I love that color jacket.
Thank you.
I almost understood that.
All
My mom was like,
right, so I'm gonna
"It's
have to
not."
keep building. No, it's kind of nice.
No, she's like, no, mom, that's Grand Valley colors. You're at Ferris. That's what she told, because I'm not Grand Valley alum and I worked there for.
Oh, yeah, that's
a while,
right. I
so-
forgot you keep them there. You know, I don't have this in bed.
Well, now you've got, now you have to look.
But I could put on my, my lanyard or something that makes it look cool. That's you can wear to everything, right? I was just, because I'm the only one and I can do yeah,
The camera follows you
it does.
wherever you're standing, so,
If you're here,
and there's
yeah.
both sides.
All right,
There's a
cool.
camera on both sides, because it was picking up Lori, there's two camera screens, so, yeah.
Should be good. Are you glad we're done?
Is it Kim?
Yes.
Are you going to eat now or did you eat before?
We ate before, we had our little,
I didn't know if I could eat here, but I saw someone.
yeah, they were eating
Okay,
before.
okay, good. Well, Lori, it's nice to meet you too. My name's Lori. So
Hi.
I'm a nursing student here. So,
Oh, you are?
I mean, I guess.
That's,
No, I'm not. My daughter.
Your daughter, yeah, you like Cinder?
very much.
So she's just getting into the nursing part, but yeah, so yeah.
Well,
That's
again,
how
it's
we
not
know each
mine.
other. And then.
Yeah, but I mean, it's great to have something. Well, and what
My
you're
daughter
doing,
just
yeah,
graduated in May, but
and a lot of things analyzing.
Are in the BSN in.
I know it's using it a lot.
In hers, and I was like, oh.
No, so you're the on-campus one?
Are in the BSN and.
She said how long you're on.
I know,
Yeah.